Okay, hello, assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to another session of the Azure Qatar community. My name is Fatma, and I'm a solution architect here at Microsoft, and myself, along with my colleagues, Cher, Fatah, Sarmad, and Hamza's not here. We run the Azure Qatar community. It's good to see some returning faces and some new faces. This community is all about sharing knowledge about the Microsoft Cloud platform. Also, our hopefully we're going to have some more sessions about maybe modern works, co-pilot sessions, and so on. We've been running it for a while now, and it's great to see the community growing. And we cover everything related to AI, security, infra, and so on. So today's session is about Fabric, which is I really love this topic because it's also what I mostly cover here at Microsoft. And we have a very special speaker that flew all the way from Munich, right? Dr. Estera. Dr. Estera actually used to be at Microsoft as well, part of the Synapse and the Fabric product group. She is also a doctor, not a medical doctor. She has a Ph.D. in this field. And then now she works with a company called Clouds on Mars. Well, also, I just got to know today it's in this building as well. So that's good to know that they are also a Microsoft partner working on data and AI solutions here in their region. So she's going to tell us all about Fabric. So if you don't know what is Fabric, that's fine. Dr. Sarah did promise us that she'll give like a primer on that. And then she's going to talk about how Fabric is the platform in this modern era of AI. And so do listen attentively because let me just go here and show the swag that we have. We are going to play a quick game of Kahoot at the end. And the winners are going to walk away with some Microsoft Fabric socks. Stole this from FabCon. So, and then we do have some stickers later to give away for everyone. Listen attentively, ask lots of questions. We like to keep the sessions interactive. And also for those of you who are not part of the LinkedIn or WhatsApp group, just reach out to us later so that we can add you. So without further ado, Dr. Estera, go ahead.
Thank you so much. It's a great pleasure for me to be here together with my team, as that's the very first time in the region. I have a PhD in computer science, which is for me my passion, my hobby to build the solutions. I had a privilege to implement the different solutions on the customer side, but I was working for Procter & Gamble, and at a specific point in time, I thought, let's improve the technology, let's join Microsoft, let's do the technology better. I was a cloud solution architect, and then I moved to Redmond, so headquarters of Microsoft, to make two products at the beginning, Synapse Analytics, and then Microsoft Fabric, to build it, to make it working. And of course, I wasn't covering entire Fabric, because Fabric, as of now, there are 10,000 people working as part of Microsoft Fabric product group. And Fabric is the future because it started with lots of different paths that were pushing the leadership team to make a decision to create and simplify integration of different tools on Azure. And when I was in a process to join the product group, they were pitching to me that, we use Azure as a Microsoft cloud. And right now, Azure Portal especially is a gateway to start building your solutions from the infrastructure as a service and then platform as a service side. And the same vision was set for Fabric. Fabric is going to be, and as of now, if you take a look, that it's right now already a gateway to all of your data components within Microsoft. You can start working with, and I will show you in a few minutes, data integration. You do not need a separate service for it. You do not have to create a database. It's already there. You can start coding without provisioning any compute power. So natively embedded, integrated. And the promise is that you are just paying for there's just one single price for it, because before, if you create a solution with using Azure, yeah, you can do a PhD just how to use Azure Calculator. Here we have a capacities. It's a very separate story how to do a good cost estimation for capacities. But the promise is to simplify everything from integration up to preparation and then later on to cost management and also to management. And I would love to show you today how like end-to-end vision for like is standing for Microsoft Fabric, and then going further. We all talk about AI. Right now, it's hard to get any funding for a project without AI in a name. At the same time, let's talk about AI, but the fundamentals are still, the principles are still the same. We need a good data because from garbage in, we cannot get any insightful outcomes. That's why we'll talk also about how Fabric is helping us with building, simplifying AI capabilities. Right now, all of us, we are using different GPTs, different copilots, different agents that are helping and generating some text for us, doing some simple tasks for us. At the same time, how to create some agent that is knowledgeable. I will show you later today what we can take from Fabric. There are a few already embedded mechanisms that are simplifying a scenario that you can really talk to your data. And of course, this is possible, but then what about the quality? So we'll also talk about the feedback loop. Okay, let's kick off and let's ask this question. The question is about, isn't the right time as of now? Now is the time to start asking the question, isn't unifying analytics and AI in one single platform just a common sense? Shouldn't that be done already? Yes, it should be done. So it's not about just should, but yes, let's do it. Okay, so who wouldn't want to break data silos with a single solution? You are coming from a different backgrounds, but that sentence, data silos, that phrase, we are struggling with so many different types of databases, so many different places where that data is stored, updated, data quality issues, and Fabric is breaking and creating a new paradigm, basically a new way of thinking that everything should be in a single logical place. Physically, we should not care. It should be simplified, and it is. But logically, we should have a single app, single view that we can control it. So that's the starting point for our journey. The journey is about Microsoft Fabric, which is a unified data platform. A platform that helps us to break the silos, the platform that is AI-powered, meaning that it, from the beginning, when you move the data to the cloud, it helps you to simplify. So you move the data once, and then the transformations should be simplified. That's why it's AI-powered. Then it's open and AI-ready. What does it mean? It applies an open data format, which is Delta Lake. Even though Delta Lake library has been created by people who are creating Databricks, but Microsoft is taking the Delta Lake library and making the foundational block, One Lake, we'll talk in a second about it, making that the primary foundation of where your data is stored. What it means? It means that if you move to Fabric, if you land the data there, you can always go to on-prem because One Lake is open. You can go to different platforms. And right now, ask yourself, do you work with Oracle, SAP, and so on, different types of databases? If so, you're like, it's vendor locking. With the approach of One Lake, with the approach of Delta Lake, it's one decision for now, but then without increasing the cost, you can migrate to a different solutions in the future. That's why it's a commitment to being transparent and open and work with the community. And the third point, it's AI-enabled business users. Do you use Office? Everyone. Do you use Excel? Everyone. Why not to process and send the data from Excel to Fabric and then allow your colleagues, your team to process it further? Why not have an option to sideload the data? Why not to connect the two worlds? Business people who are using Office ecosystem and all of the tools with some cloud capabilities, because Fabric is going to be about data processing and getting insights. Why not to empower every business user to use Power BI? It's hard to use Power BI, but if you have Copilot, it's not. It's not. It's not. Let's go. The pillars. Here, Microsoft Fabric, you can also think about it from the perspective of umbrella. Fabric is an umbrella to connect and to integrate different tools that already exist on Azure platform, but on Azure, you have to connect with all of them. You have to glue them. And under the Microsoft Fabric umbrella, it's already connected, secure, and the same pillars, the same quality requirements needs to be followed by every engine. The first one. Do you know Data Factory? We'll talk about in details what is it, but basically we have a possibility to, and the gateway to enter the data to the cloud. So Data Factory, we have capabilities to process the data. So we have analytics scenarios powered. We have databases. This is something new. As I said, Fabric is going to be a gateway to every component, to every solutions that is related to data. We have real-time intelligence, so real-time processing capabilities. And of course, this is very hint and important point. Microsoft Fabric leadership team is coming from one single product, that is Power BI. What it means, Power BI has been extremely successful during the years. Right now, we'll see 95% of Fortune 500 organizations are using Power BI. And this team achieved amazing success. And right now they are driving Microsoft Fabric towards the same, towards higher adoption, knowing that, yes, and here I see some smiles. I want to give you a perspective that Microsoft Fabric has been released 22 months ago. So it's not even 2 years after GA, not even 2 years. And who from you, please raise a hand, who know what is the Azure Databricks? A few people, okay, lots of people. So many times for sure, our thinking or your customers, partners are asking you, Fabric or Databricks? And then how many years Databricks is on the market? 7. So it's hard to compare to technology from the maturity perspective, which is 7, 8 years on the market versus 22 months. At the same time, we need to take a look what has been achieved and 10,000 people working on it. So we have engines. Those engines are working, can utilize them to process the data. And on top of that, we have Fabric platform, which is AI capabilities. So lovely Copilot. We have One Lake. So you may think about One Lake as it's ADLS Gen 2, so Azure Data Lake Storage, 2nd generation, but enhanced. It's not just a single storage, but it's enhanced. I've been working on a few specific improvements, lots of improvements, like there are embedded caching that we don't have a clue about. There are lots of SSDs that are embedded and we do not it's not even possible to read about it in the documentation. Why? Because Microsoft Fabric is a SaaS platform. So it should work, SaaS means software as a service. It should work as it is as a service from the box. That's why tons of optimizations will happen. And you may ask, if I use One Lake versus just raw data storage, ADLS Gen 2, what's faster? What would be the answer? Of course, One Lake. Why? Because One Lake is natively integrated with Microsoft Fabric. It's the core pillar of Microsoft Fabric. And every engine that you see here on the slide is because it's natively integrated. Think about it, it's natively optimized. At the end, we have the last pillar about the governance, which is, in short, Purview which is allowing you to govern who can do what in the data lineage. Now, first pillar, one lake. Where do you store your personal data? On OneDrive. So OneDrive is for personal data. OneLake is for the corporate data. And it means that we have a OneLake, which is a foundational block, ADLS Gen 2, but on steroids. So basically improved, elevated, where you keep all your files or your data. So instead of having different type of databases, different type of SharePoints, you have just a single source of truth, which is OneLake. That you store the data. From OneLake, you manage all your data. And as said before, single open format, which is Delta Lake. Now, we'll start with the first pillar. So the story is about that today we'll load the data, we will process the data in the batch manner, but also in real-time manner, and then we'll take a look at the visualization, and we'll talk about agentic solution. I have a few demos just to showcase the capabilities. Also, I promised in the description that we'll talk about the most challenging scenarios for enterprises, which are how to integrate Microsoft Fabric with SAP and Oracle, which is possible. And the gateway for it is just data factory. Let's take a look at the first glance, which will be the view of data factory. So here, we are going to have 170 different connectors. You can build also your custom one. You can move the data from different clouds, but also you can move the data from on-prem through VNet gateways, on-prem gateways. So secure connectivity across all like 160 plus. So right now, data factory inside Microsoft Fabric is going closer in a feature parity with Azure Data Factory. And here I want to explain a very sometimes a point that is causing a confusion. We are going to have Azure Data Factory and Fabric Data Factory inside Fabric, right? So there are two separate, at the same time, very similar products which are moving the data. The differences, or historically, the team has been working on Azure Data Factory. It was part of Microsoft Azure umbrella. At the specific point in time when there was a move that we are going to build Microsoft Fabric, kind of with simplification, everything what was happening for Azure Data Factory was, okay, frozen, fork, and then all of the improvements, or majority of the improvements, are landing inside Fabric Data Factory. What it means? It means that all of the innovations, adding, extending connectors, but also improving the performance, this is happening inside Data Factory per se. Okay. Now, in terms of the connectors, here, we have to think about connectors from the perspective that you follow Azure cycle, meaning that, first of all, connector is available in public preview. Later on, at least 3 months. That's the requirement. If there is something in public preview, we need at least 3 months to progress to GA. GA means that it's generally available and it's ready for production solutions. It's recommended for production solutions. And here you can take a look that the number of connectors that are inside Data Factory, of course, it's growing. We see the number, but what is the most important? The most important for us is the whole connectivity with Azure databases for Postgres and growing, of course, for SQL. Then connectors for SAP, different versions. Connectors for Oracle as well. So Fabric Data Factory is making you possible to basically orchestrate everything and connect data to one lake. And here, important point, we'll have different ways to integrate everything in one lake. What I mean? I mean that sometimes we want to move the data, so to copy the data to the cloud and forget about the source system. Sometimes you want to mirror, so kind of copy the data to the cloud, but keep the sync with the original source because we cannot get rid of the original source. Sometimes we want to do a shortcut to a different cloud, to a different storage that exists, but we do not want to duplicate the data. Even though storing the data in a cloud, and this is a super important principle, storing the data inside the cloud, inside the Azure cloud, is cheap. It's just $23 per terabyte. So storing is cheap, but processing, it's not. That's why, if you take a look from this perspective, for many questions, you will find immediate answer that, for example, why mirroring is free? Because you just mirror data to Azure, but to Microsoft, to OneLake, to Fabric. But then what do? You want to process this data, and then the costs are coming. There was a question? Or no? There's a question.
Yeah, can we ask you one?
Yes, in the meantime, yeah.
So when you said the Fabric is going like an umbrella, it is the same as Azure. So Fabric is within Azure, it's staying within Azure.
Yes, so let me try to simplify it. Oh, we have this beautiful, do you have a pencil? Oh, yeah. You do? So basically, I want to draw this explanation because it's showing you how you can enter and jump into Fabric, because there are two gateways. The first is Azure portal. You need to, in Azure portal, you need to create a capacity.
Is it like what? Is it like the compute?
It's rather a billing definition. It's still not something provisioned for you. It's rather kind of a declaration that you want to use a specific size of the SKU, of the capacity. And within this capacity, you will use and you will utilize different engines. You can utilize Power BI, you can utilize Spark and everything else, but your cost will not grow higher than the capacity that you declare to use. So once you have a capacity, then you can start using Fabric. The other gateway is, because Microsoft Fabric is coming and is led by a leadership team from Power BI, the story is that basically, if you have a Power BI license from P1 to P5, every customer who has those licenses right now is upgraded to the mapping capacities, which are starting from F2 up to even F2048. So basically,
just for those who don't know about that. So what do these mean, like F2, F2048?
So this is the SKU for the Fabric.
Is it like tiers? We can think of
it. Tiers. And this tier is mapped to the specific cloud capabilities. It's not, even though we find in the documentation mapping what F2 means in terms of virtual cores, it's hard at the end for us. It's a software as a service. So we are buying, capacity. Think about it.
No.
Yes.
So is it like some machine there that gives us yes. To run our portal?
Yes.
So that's the only thing we do in the Azure portal, right? We just provision that.
Yes. Provisioning capacity. And we can do that in Azure portal. At the same time, we have tons of different APIs, CLIs, also to manage it, to make it automated. So two ways, portal and Power BI.
The P1 to the P5 is going to be decommissioned soon, right?
Exactly.
It's already,
but for some customers, there are still exceptions. Again, there has to be, because Microsoft, again, is delivered on such a scale that it's hard to say. And it was said that this is going to be, it's the commission already, the announcement, or it started effectively from April this year, even though there are some exceptions just to handle it. But basically, everyone is landing. Once it's landed on F capacity, then there is one checkbox as a Power BI 10. So as a tenant admin, you have an option to disable Fabric. And there are some companies who decided to stop using Fabric because they said we need to verify all of the security, vetting, performance vetting. And after it, they are enabling, okay, Fabric can be used within the organization. So sometimes we'll find the people who are saying that even though we do utilize Power BI a lot, we do not have the access to Fabric. Why? Because it has been blocked, intentionally blocked by tenant admins.
So Dr. Estera, basically what you're telling us here is to get Fabric, you would either go provision something from the Azure portal, get like the F compute, or if you already have Power BI Premium, you will get Fabric as well. That's what you're telling us here,
Yes.
Right?
Plus, there is a quite good option to enter this space, which is basically a trial. There is a trial option to get. What trial for Fabric means? It means that you are getting quite a solid one because you are getting a F64 capacity for 2 months to play with Fabric.
For free?
For free.
So I need to put my credit card details?
Sure.
No.
I don't think so. No. I think that I was doing that a few days ago, and I didn't have to.
Yeah, you don't need to.
Yes.
But if you get this, like for this two, you bought it or you switch your capacity
Yes.
from Power BI, so you get the whole umbrella, like the processing.
That's the thing, that you are getting the whole umbrella. There is no option to, you do not have to enable a single one, so data factory, as it was in Azure, that first the data factory, second, and so on. No, you are getting everything. And a single portal where you can just you can just play with data instead of configuring. So the promise from the beginning was that we need just 5 clicks within 5 minutes at maximum to start working with Microsoft Fabric. And it's kind of like, this is happening because you do not provision one lake. It's already there. You do not provision any Spark big data compute engines because it's already there. You do not need a warehouse setting there. What's the size? Because again, it's already there. It's rather, okay, so I want to start with playing with some data, where the data is, how I can connect, and let's start thinking about what's the use case I wanna fulfill, I wanna do. At the end, you want to empower business users. So do you plan to do some reporting? And because of that, you need to prepare the data? Or do you need to do some data science experiment? Or do you need to consolidate the data coming from the IoT sensors and want to do some calculations? But with Fabric, we can just start thinking about what's the end product versus all of the gluing part.
So just also a question, so let's say I already have like PDF, I have like the storage account, I'm happy with my current setup. Like, why do I need Fabric? Why can't I just run all these individual past tenses?
So I would say that you can still use it, but the first, when we are doing as a PG exercises and in terms of like how to, talk with a customer who is having exactly this situation, it will be cheaper with Fabric, or it may be cheaper, and by saying it will be is for making a promises, and it will be cheaper once you will do a proper WISE-ful configurations. And it can be cheaper, and it will be once it's done properly. Secondly, you are having existing components and it's working. And the question is, do you want to elevate your business users and use scenarios to do something, to unblock different scenarios? If so, why it's first of all super easy to migrate to Fabric because it's simplified, and then on top of that you can start with having unblocked scenarios, meaning that if you are on Azure, then if you want to do some data science capabilities, you will have to provision one more time. Azure Machine Learning, create a compute, create a connectivity with data source, and start configuring what machine do I need, versus on Fabric.
And I pay for each one of them separately.
Yes. And plus you have to take care of the security rules for each of them separately.
You're saying with Fabric, all I do is I just bring my data into one lake, and then I can start whether I want to create a notebook, or I want to create a dashboard, I want to run some Spark jobs, like I can just easily do that.
Yes.
No,
Plus, once you will consolidate all your data in a single place, then you do not need to copy the data to your colleague to empower a colleague to do some experiment. It's just no physical copy, just a logical copy, which is just single word shortcut.
I can break all those silos.
Yeah.
True.
Yes.
What do we mean by properly when you said when we can make sure that it's cheaper by operating Fabric properly? How do we define properly in this context?
So this is a topic for a solid PhD, and also because of it, this is a space for all of the partners. The reality is that as Microsoft, you are defining a product for very different customers. One will the reference LSEG, London Stock Exchange market. It's for them fulfilling and meeting their requirements. It's very different than for a very small startup from Switzerland. And because of it, to create a single software as a service platform, even though it doesn't, like, if you put software as a service and platform in the same line, it's little confusing. But to have a single product that is fulfilling the needs coming from so different customers means that you set some default values for what's the compute, the default compute, what default security settings will you have, what default mechanism and behavior of the tool you will have. It means, and also under the hood, there are lots of virtual machines, which we are also, as a product group, the team was optimizing, tuning, and adjusting. And this tuning is happening always for specific scenarios. What it means? That it's tuned in a best way for the best default customer. And it means that and the reality is that majority of the scenarios are different ones. So you will need some tuning. And because we have very different engines, we have Data Factory, which already has pipelines and data flows, which are very different technologies using even very different language than data warehouse and so on. There is a specific tuning that is happening for every scenarios. And at the end, there is this capacity, how to make capacity cheaper, more optimized. Long story short, this is the tuning that is happening for your scenarios, for your needs, the customer's needs, in terms of throughput, in terms of data size, in terms of the number of users that are at the same time concurrently basically taking or inputting the data. And because of it, because we had to set one single settings across all of the different reality, tuning is always an option. But conclusion, is software as a service, but because it's the next generation of Synapse analytics, and every Synapse analytic customer will be at a specific point in time empowered or forced to migrate to Fabric. And in Synapse, we have lots of different configuration options. It means that Fabric has to satisfy those needs as well. Conclusion, the final conclusion. Fabric is a software as a service, but it means that you do not have to configure anything. But for those who want, there is an option to configure.
One question regarding the configuration with Bicep. Is it possible to code it and all the possibilities and tunings with Bicep and serve it?
No. Terraform provider has been introduced a few months ago as in preview. Right now it's already in GA. And there is a REST API for entire, like for Fabric for all of the pillars. But Bicep is more for Azure versus for data, like for Microsoft Fabric. So for data world, we are going to be based on Terraform plus a few more libraries. And by those libraries, I mean Fabric CLI and Fabric CI/CD, just those two libraries that you need to make enterprise CI/CD scenarios happening.
Programmatically, okay.
Yes, no Bicep, no ARM, no
There's Terraform.
Terraform. Yes, but Terraform is based on REST API, and based on the REST API, you will get Fabric CLI as well as Fabric CI/CD. Any other questions? I think that we are going to the demo part of Data Factory, not yet. Good. So before we, I want to show you a few demos. Mirroring. So as I said, sometimes we want to move the data, and sometimes we want to make a mirror of the data, meaning that we want to move the data to allow our, for example, Power BI to access Oracle, data coming from Oracle, but we want to keep the synchronization almost in real time, but in real time we are talking about from a few seconds, minutes, but near close to real time. In Spark big data processing world, close to near real time, it means up to 15 minutes, but here up to like close to near real time. And mirroring is free. Why? Because from doing copying the data to a cloud and not processing it, you do not get much value. You want to process it with using notebooks, with using Power BI, and with using like Copilot. That's why it's free.
You're saying with mirroring, if let's say I have an on-prem SQL database, I don't need to have a complex ETL pipeline. I can just set this up and then I'll have a replica of it in my OneLake.
Exactly. Of that source, of that, it can be Oracle. It can like you will find the documentation, the growing number, because the vision is to make one lake one single lake for all of your data.
And then as soon as it's there, I can just use it with all of my other workflows.
Exactly.
But it's not stored.
The data is stored in one lake. And it's so basically, if you have SQL or on-prem SQL or Oracle, so the data is mirrored to one lake, and your team can start using it with, for example, Power BI. And if there is any change on the source system, it's automatically replicated on the one lake side.
Not files. This is the actual schema, tables, the triggers.
So the table means like for which product and for,
It's an Oracle database.
yes.
Do I need to go get a license for it, or is it takes the replica? I mean, it's kind of like replicating the data
Yes.
to a reporting database. Let's say it's an operational database for reporting. I don't interrupt my production systems. So my thinking of the lake was these are files.
So that's
It's kind of like where I park my data, and then when I need it, I take what I need.
a good point. So one lake, yes, it's a place for your files. But as said, Delta tables, who heard about lake houses? Lots of good. So we are going to have one lake as a place where you land your files. Once you have a file, like lots of files, we are creating a lake house. It's just for the lake house, we are just providing a single name. And because of it, we are getting a kind of a structure, a transformation that because you have files, you can transform those files to the form of tables. Because at the end, from the end user perspective, what do you want to access? Sometimes you want to access files, but many times you want to access just those tables. And by those tables, we are talking about applying the paradigm of delta tables. So even though we are going to have the SQL on-prem or SQL on Azure tables, at the end, we are talking about, and this is the final promise, and this is also happening in stages, but the promise is that you have a source, and firstly, the easiest option is to move files, but at the end, the vision for Microsoft Fabric is that you have a tables, source tables, with, of course, relations with the schema, but we want to get their replicas or the mirroring of those tables inside a single lakehouse. But at the beginning and for different products is happening with just files. And then later on, it will be progressing with transforming to the form of tables. And here, in terms of those tables, we are going, and when we do have an option to create a shortcut from our lake house, we are just defining that we are creating a virtual table or a shortcut to a table which is somewhere else, and it works. So basically, mirroring is one scenario, but the second is creating a shortcut to the specific table that it's sitting somewhere else. For example, creating the shortcut to a table on GCP, on AWS, or on one day on Snowflake, because the final promise is just here.
You're saying with shortcuts, the data just stays where it is, and I just create like a symbolic link to it.
Symbolic link. Yes.
With mirroring, I can just have a replica of my data in one link for other specific needs.
Yes.
And I had a few things in here. I think one of the question was related to the licensing part. Okay, so whatever, for example, if you're talking about Oracle, for enabling the CDC is the license of the Oracle. That is up to the customer to decide. We, as the connector, require the CDC. As far as the CDC enable, it just read the logs. Okay.
Does that have to be Golden Gate or it can be anything?
No, this is the connector. I think in the Fabric.
Connector takes the.
Yeah, it is considered like a replica of Golden Gate. You don't need to pay for Golden Gate. You just enable the CDC feature on your Oracle, and the Fabric Data Factory connector will take care of this. Okay, correct?
Yes.
Yes. And the one other thing is, once you get the CDC, okay, the files which is streaming, it will take the value and it will say this is an update, this is an insert, this is a delete. Okay, so you will have a marker which change the actual source structure. So when you land the file, it will be like a stream of data. Then you need to merge it to make the operational asset or the operational data snapshot. You have to combine those files together, because consider that you are on operational source. A customer, let's say, address is updated. It will say update. So in the marker, you will see an update in the CDC. Then you have to merge in the final table to get the view if you want to get an exactly view of your source. And then you need to define the frequency, how you want to merge it. So that is, I think, the CDC processing part, you need to put that.
If this wasn't their share, like what would we have to do? We'd have to write like these complex pipelines to check if there's any change, and then like write like a logic for the CDC.
So there is two problems, like why CDC? The first thing is operational data source. Why we enable the data sources on
CDC stands for change data capture.
Like usually in the ETL, what we do is every night we just pull a large volume of data. It put a lot of pressure on the source data because the source data is doing constant transaction. You cannot pull a large amount because on-prem, they don't have a secondary replica which you can take. So for operational reporting, you want to move everything to Fabric. So you can offload your on-prem database and do everything on your lake. So that is what this will enable. The second thing is, if you don't have the CDC process, you can do the same thing, but the mirroring part, or like this mirroring part, what we are doing, we are bringing the data, but in trickle feeds. Whenever something happens, we just like put it in the
increment.
Yeah,
right?
And that's why the source databases is not having that much impact because of the CDC nature. But you have to pay for the licensing to the company who owns that database. If it's SAP, if it's Oracle, SQL Server, we do it for free. But for the other guys, you have to pay the license.
Maintain it. So instead of, again, we do not have to handle, and thanks a lot, like beautiful explanation. Basically, we do not have to write a job to move the data, job to monitor if there is any change, copy, update, and from vice versa. It's because mirroring can be just one side, but also both sides. But it's done automatically, and on our side is just basically to get that configured. So a huge simplification. What we get, it's like table mapping as well, all of the changes depending on the versions as well.
And one other thing, a lot of people who are doing the CDC, if you check their pricing, just the licensing, just to move a few terabytes of data sets per month will be $10,000, $20,000. Fabric, it will come out of the box with you. You will have to pay the compute, but along with that, there is no licensing. So you will get it much cheaper.
Yeah, and we need, again, here, the same is when we move the data from different clouds, again, mirroring will happen for sure in a future for different clouds. I mean, think about network and egress, meaning that clouds welcome the data that are incoming, right? You move the data to cloud, beautiful. But think that if you move out the data out of the any cloud, those, the provider is not happy. Why? Because you are, taking and going somewhere else. So if you do a mirroring of the source coming from a different cloud, the same will happen for shortcut. So basically, if you use any way to enter the data to Azure, to Fabric, amazing. But think that the source, AWS, GCP, they may not be happy and they will charge you for egress. So what Microsoft is doing, OneLake is doing, is also caching. So each time if you do a shortcut, the data are cached. If you do even just a single query to a different cloud, the results are cached. Now, different cache level, like results set cache, different levels of caches, just to make sure that for your tenant, you do not kind of have to, each time you do not have to go to the source because it will land with huge costs.
Last question.
Just doing a time check. We have like an hour left. Do you want
Yes.
to proceed with
Yes.
the material and then we can take more questions outside?
Yeah, maybe. Now let's take a look at the different types of supported sources. So we'll talk about shortcut. Shortcut, as Fatima said, it's symbolic link. Symbolic link, ln minus s from those who are loving Linux. So just a pointer where my data is. I do not have to move the data physically. I'm just doing a logical copy of it.
Like sort of like how in the desktop I have a shortcut to my C drive or my folder in my D drive. It's similar concept there.
Yes.
It's not physically on my desktop. I just click on it. It takes me there.
Exactly. So shortcuts and mirroring, again, take a look. Azure SQL database, then data lake storage. Different OneLakes, if there are across, and right now we have a few cases that one organization is having like a big one, the biggest global ones are having lots of OneLakes, possible. But also there are scenarios for ISV, so independent, so companies who are building the solutions for customers and they want to do some analytics across all of them. Because of OneLake shortcuts, they can fulfill this mission. But Google Cloud Storage, Cosmos DB, Oracle DB, BigQuery, and so on, including SQL managed instances. Good, let's progress. And now, in terms of Oracle, yes, I will show the demo about the mirroring, but you always have an option, and this is always, the easiest step to move the data. That's why copy job. So the copy job inside pipelines is supporting you just to move the data. And now let's go to the through the demo. So I will go ahead and create a single. I will create here a single item. Not sure if. Okay. Let's create a single item. And we will select mirroring for Oracle. First. One second. So, miracle for Oracle. Now we are just defining the connection string, and it's on-prem for gateway connectivity. Further on, selecting all of the tables, setting the destination, then the replicas process starts just already with a single click. Then we have to navigate to the SQL Analytics endpoint. The replicas is there. We can see the status, the rows completed. Yep, everything here. And double check, triple check number of rows. Synchronize it. The best part, move the same queries. And it will work. And here, after just setting the connectivity with here, Oracle DB on-prem and moving it to one lake, as it was emphasized, you can start processing it at the end with either just a single notebook or T-SQL query, and you can use connect Power BI directly to this specific source. But at the same time, you are getting notebook capabilities. So notebook, you can, for those who are new in this area, think about that as Jupyter notebooks, where you can use different languages. You write the code, not a single script. You just write a single line of the code inside single cell. And then you just process with executing this single cell. And inside Microsoft Fabric, beneath those notebooks, you are getting Apache Spark runtime, so some engine that is pre-configured for you. Long story short, you can use either Scala language, the simplest one, PySpark, so Python. For those who are coming from T-SQL or Spark SQL, which is super, in a simplicity, super similar with T-SQL. There are almost a few converters from T-SQL, convert me my code to Spark SQL. And for those who are working on statistics scenarios, you can utilize R. And imagine implementing that scenario. So you have Oracle DB on-prem, and you want your team to start doing some machine learning experiment. How to do that on Azure right now? Lots of work with this setup, just a pipeline, and then single notebook with R, for example. let's keep and go to the capabilities as just being cautious about the timing. In terms of analytics, so for
All right. For the mirroring, on Fabric, is it the data are they read-only? If you do any modification, will it affect the source?
So you need to check what you want to do the mirroring with. So at the beginning, there is for every product, there is a single direction, meaning that just mirroring and no writing back. But once the functionality is progressing, there is bidirectional, yes. So you can write back the data, so the synchronization is happening.
The best to have it as read-only.
It depends on the scenario.
What you are doing is analysis, the reporting, and as a developer, you can make a mistake and truncate your table.
Yes, but it means that usually for the development, you have access to the development database, not the production one. That's why you will not destroy it. But also there is a concept of medallion architecture, meaning that first of all, you have like for lake houses, for data tables, first of all, you have a raw layer where you land all of your raw data, dirty, not transform as it is, but then this is one version. The second layer is silver when you start to clean it, but still not enhance. But after silver, there is a gold layer, which is basically ready for best business user. It can be Power BI, but sometimes those scenarios are also about that the gold is ready for the end user is analytics or data science team, so it's ready for them. But yeah, now, so different sources, one gateway. The one gateway is data factory. And now you want to start processing it. How? With using analytics pillar. So for those who heard about Synapse and Databricks, it's kind of a sister or a brother for Databricks, meaning that Microsoft Fabric Analytics pillar is competing with Azure Databricks or with just Databricks because those functionalities are very similar, almost many times the same with having different names. But the analytics pillar is about data engineering. Data engineering means Apache Spark, all of the scenarios related to big data processing. Second, data warehouse. So well-known SQL DW data warehouse coming from Azure, MPP architecture. The third, data science capabilities. And now let's go through the demo. I will voice over on what is happening. So here we are inside Fabric. Let's take a look here on the Explorer side. We do have a lake house, a warehouse that is added. We can see here it's for sure the warehouse because we can take a look at the schema, DBOs, tables, and so on. Click play. Now let's start with playing with this view, so we can get more data, write some SQL, enable Copilot, process and use native integration with VS Code, for example. And here, let's just because we have some data already, let's create a very simple query and take a look what is happening. We start writing select. And not Copilot, but the experience inside the kind of a notebook is helping us to finish the single query. So super simplification for developers, for DBAs, for everyone who is inside Fabric, not only with writing the code, but also with debugging what's working. Now let's take a look. We have Copilot, which right now for every F capacity, Copilot is enabled. And what it means that, first of all, we can ask a question to our data, and Copilot is generating some code that is helping and explaining us, so this is the code, you can use it, you can natively just embed and run it. At the end, you can create with using Copilot, just as it happened in a second, a very quick report. The report can be created also just by Copilot. What it means that lots of, the requirement for entry level of Power BI skills are not longer valid. Why? Because Copilot, those entry immediate steps can do for us. Prototyping here, take a look at PySpark, Spark SQL, R, Python, T-SQL, every language you can just switch and have a single notebook, even though sometimes you know the structure, the syntax of a one language. Inside the notebook, you can just switch between all of them. Sometimes some scenarios are easier in one language, sometimes in the other. For example, right, you can connect from a notebook to Azure SQL database. It's possible. You need to utilize just a single Python library. Which language, and now let's vote, which language is the most equipped with examples, with a code, and also with the support to connect from notebook to Azure SQL DW? Guess. Raise a hand who thinks PySpark. Okay, now Scala, FabSQL, and Spark R. So the answer is, and this is pricing, Scala. Scala, because the native connectivity and those scenarios to connect from notebooks to Azure SQL, Azure like SQL database, has at the beginning been created for IoT scenarios, and because of it, that connectivity was happening. But right now there are a few more options to connect. We can talk about that later on. Now let's switch to progressing real-time intelligence. As we start the processing the data with the notebooks, different languages, different capabilities. Right now, the usage of lakehouses and usage of analytics scenarios using Apache Spark, so big data processing library, is growing faster than utilization of data warehouses. Here, think about that data warehouse right now is the mostly used and the platform competing with Snowflake, whereas analytics scenarios, meaning the data engineering, is competing with Databricks. So those are the similar products. In terms of the real-time intelligence here, have you ever used Custo language? Custo language created during the hackathon at Microsoft, which is basically, and at the beginning was used for just log analytics. And it very quickly, the team realized that log analytics is about time series data processing, meaning that logs are coming from a certain point in time. It means that there is always this baseline. It means that this is a beautiful scenario, the beautiful baseline just to grow real-time workloads. There is a service on Azure, Data Explorer. And the next evolution of Data Explorer inside Fabric or under Fabric umbrella is real-time intelligence, where we are getting a simplification to get the data from IoT devices, process them in a flight, group them in a flight, and on top of that, as it's about real-time processing and real-time intelligence, do some actions. By actions, we mean do some actions using Office, Teams, and other devices. Because in real time, we want to just forget about integrating with event houses, event streams, and everything. It should work just by setting where is our source of data coming from. Let's connect to it. There are different protocols, Kafka and others. It doesn't matter for us. For us, it means what's the IP or address of the source. Sometimes it's just a website that is publishing something. Then, so URL, then this source, we connect to this source, and we are creating an event stream. On event stream, we are applying some actions, and the most important, we are having an event house by event house, think about that as a kind of a sister or a brother of a lake house. So basically a place for all of your time series based data. And we were doing the exercises as this is the right tool for all of the banking, all of the telco, all of the IoT scenarios, energy as well. And you may ask also, like in analytics scenarios, with using Spark, you can also do streaming scenarios in Spark. And you may quickly realize that in Fabric, there is no single way of doing and implementing a scenario. And that's the reality, that because there are plenty of different methods to combine, we need to go through the details, which scenario, which tool is supporting which scenario in the best way. And when short rule of thumb, if you have time series data for logs, then or for logs, or you want to create a observability platform, Microsoft Fabric RTA is the way. Okay, now so let's go very quickly through the demo. We are landing in a real-time hub. It means that, again, you adopt Fabric and you are getting immediately a single source of view for your organization. What kind of items of sources do you have across different workspaces? If there is something here needed, you can just very easily connect to. Just take a look at how like different connectors are. IoT Hub, Event Hub, Confluence, Kafka, like different licensing also will need to happen here. Take a look, you have one lake event, so you can also from create a source to a different one lake. You can manage, edit, jump in to the details, but at the end, this is also happening for analytics scenarios that we are getting and progressing more and more into a view that you want to build a logical flow of actions. Here we are starting with data coming from Azure Event Hub and then progressed and then transform. At the end, those data are saved in here a KQL database. So we may say that event house or some form of tables. And immediately you can just define a different source when you are saving that as a file, as a table. And no coding required, just as pure configuration. Plus, there is also an option for parameterization.
So you're saying here, Dr. Stairs, like if I have a bunch of like IoT devices and sensors or like streams of data coming in, I can just inject them into this event house and then run some transformations on them while it's streaming.
Yes.
That's really cool. And then like, what can I do more with that data? Can I have like a dashboard on top of that that updates in real time?
Exactly.
Even if it's like millions and millions and millions of rows?
Yes, at the end, you will not need all of them. You will need some KPI coming from them, but yes. And the beauty is that in the past, we can build this solution with just Azure portal and create connectivity to some IoT device with IoT Hub, with Event Stream. It will take us a while, I mean, a few hours to configure that properly. Imagine that we have a sensor of the temperature in this room. The sensor is just Raspberry Pi, and we are making that Raspberry Pi visible in our network, then register, connected, streaming. And with streaming, what's the most critical? Checkpointing. Here, we do, as a users, we do not have to take care. There is a specific theory how to make sure that the data are saved, for example, at least once or different theories, but it's handled by the, again, by the product. For us, it's just a selection of different options, nothing requiring coding.
It can go up. So once it's in the event house, so we are keeping the stream the real-time parts. Can we go up? Like, for example, if we have like a digital twin scenario, so can I use this event house as part of my sources for my digital twin?
Yes, there is such an option. As this is, I would need to return to the architecture. Maybe I will return at the end, because Well, in Fabric, the beauty is that once you save, and this is a principle, when you save your data in one lake, this data must be compatible with other engines. So if like digital twin, we would need to go deeper into the scenarios, but basically if you save as a event house, you have to make sure that, and the platform is making sure that this data can be consumed and processed by different engines. So Fatima mentioned about Power BI, but it can be like just Spark capabilities, and you can build also processing or dashboards there. So it must be compatible. Okay, so
Is it different from Event Grid, which is the Azure service?
in Event Grid, you want, in terms of actions that you want to do later on. So like think about that maybe as a umbrella, real-time intelligence as an umbrella for all of the services for streaming. Like in the past, we had Stream Analytics, IoT Hub, Event Hub, and a few more products. And everything right now is consolidated under that umbrella. And on top of that, we got the activator that is allowing us to do those specific actions.
I can add a few things in there. So consider in streaming part, there is multiple type of services. Okay, I'm not talking about Fabric currently. I'm just talking about the generic tools. You have the event grid, which is just triggering event. A file has arrived, file has deleted, file has updated. A user has, let's say, activated the RBACs. These are the events which happens with event grid. That you take that and you trigger something else. Okay, that is the classic thing of event grid. Then we have event hubs or IoT hubs. That is streaming of the data. Like consider a unidirectional data, that is your IoT is sending a lot of data. So that data you will not put into the event grid. You will put that into IoT hubs, similar to the Kafka. And then you have another thing which is called the messaging services. It is also a kind of queue, but that do a kind of handshake. Like for IoT scenario, you don't care if there is one or two misses or drops. Okay, but for messaging service, suppose that an order has been placed by a customer. You don't want to lose that. You will not put into an event grid because it's at least once. You want to have it at most once. That, for example, that is a kind of service which is like RabbitMQ, or for example, in Azure, you will use the service bus, which gives you that when a message is sent, the receiver will receive it and they will get a confirmation that yes, for sure, this has been received. So there are 4 or 5 different type of messaging services. We can have one example of that, like in the next sessions. I can give this whole things like what is the difference or things like that. So in here, this is for the IoT scenario. So you don't compare it like with an event grid, consider it like event hub or IoT hub.
This is native for analytics and reporting only, or can this be exposed to an external tool?
So it consider like PubSub. So all these things will have PubSub. Like there will be a sender which is sending the data, and then there will become user consuming the data. Now, which consumer you want to send it to, that is you define in anything. So even in event that there will be something, file is created, the storage account is sending the signal. The consumer is that you want to, let's say, take an action, start an ADF pipeline. That is another consumer. The IoT hub, when you are sending the data, you want to ingest that into a KQL. Okay, so there's different scenario. Sorry if I'm taking time, but I just wanted to.
I think that's what you are also saying is that in Fabric, we do not need RabbitMQ or something like that, because everything is interconnected, meaning that if there is an event happening in Fabric, because of activator, we can immediately say that if there is an event, just do the action, right? If there is something, do the action. Normally, in software development world, if there is an event, send it to some RabbitMQ or some queue, or just queue, and then something has to consume it and do the action. So this is not needed. Why? Because in Fabric everything is interconnected. If there is an action, we can immediately just go to the result and do not care if as you said, at least once. Sometimes you need to implement a strategy that you want to overreact on some specific situations. So here, handled.
First short question. When we go back to the IoT scenario, do the one who is connecting the IoT device to Fabric needs to understand what is happening in the scenes behind, such as when we compare it to IoT hubs, the partitions, for example, or the consumptions and all the theories behind it. It is huge knowledge that's not needed, right? You just connect it to
Yes, partitions are happening.
the scenes behind, and
yes.
you don't need to understand it as a user. That is a huge benefit.
And partitioning again for us in terms of the IoT scenarios, like there is always like a timestamp, so the data are saved. But then later on, the reality is that from this event house, you want to process the data and you create a lake house, and then you start partitioning, and not many times by time, but by different, depending on what are the queries about. But no, you do not have to. Yeah, this is a simplification. And there was one more, yes.
If I have like 1,000 event happened at the one time, 1,000 event happened. So it will trigger 1,000 action at the same time, right?
Yes.
It will not be a queue, it will be just triggering at the same time.
In the theory, yes.
So maybe this will make like a conflict or something, because without the queue, I cannot check if there is conflict or not. I will just run all.
Yes, but here we are going to the moment if when, okay, our capacity is defining how many things at the same time can happen for us. So if you have the lowest capacity, F2, it depends if those, what's also the, what kind of events do you do? But it's the same logic happening if you run a job, Spark job, or any processing job. The capacity defines not only, like it defines how many, power vCores, and vCores are mapped to kind of a power, and the power is mapping what you can do on a specific time.
It's the classic example of, let's say you have disk, you have memory. Memory is always shorter than the things, right? But if you run a query which is bringing all the data to the memory, it will not happen. It will do chunk by chunk, right? So what we are saying is that if you have a lot of events and you have selected a capacity which is very small, of course it will not be able to handle everything in a single thing. There might be a queue. We have to check like how the product is happening, or whether it will just give you an error and say I cannot handle it. You have to increase the queue, or you have to increase the queue to make sure that kind of workload happens. That's why most of the time you just like keep it to the peak, like whatever your peak workload is, you at least do that, and you know that this is my pattern. If something happens or event happens, you have to scale up the computes accordingly. So you have more memory or more power to handle that accordingly as well. Yes.
In some action, that trigger like one action, and this action did fail to execute like 5 seconds.
And there are options again to implement the retrials out of the box. A few ones, again, it's just a number. But retrials. And also in terms of scaling, there are a few different mechanisms to make sure that Microsoft Fabric can handle the demand that is coming from your workspace. So many times you will get more power to execute and make your job fulfill with a success. So the capacity will, for you will do not see anything, but in the backend, Microsoft is scaling your capacity, fulfilling the job, and then it will take the credits for scaling up, not as an additional that you have to pay, but from the kind of the future. So the goal is to compensate and make sure that, yeah, you do not use constantly the maximum of your capacity. It should be smooth. And there is this concept of smoothing the capacity that basically it's kind of we do not want to, and of course that happens to have a queue or the memory is not sufficient, but the goal is, okay, if that's possible, is that reasonable, Microsoft will try to handle it. But if you have F2 and you are trying to, fulfill a scenario for F64, it may not work.
Like usually what I recommend to my customers for production scenario, you always go with F64. Yes. Because that is a single node, like physical node under the hood. that handles, and most of the time the production scenario should start with this. If it's lesser, consider that you are like slicing the actual node for your production workload into like 1/4 or 1/5 of the power. So you don't feel initially, but later on something will happen and then you will say it's too late because the other job will fail or somebody will have complained a lot. And then they just like, after that, they over provision, costing more than what they initially doing. So a lot of time, like when I recommend to my customer, start with F64 because that is usually the production workload. Initially, there was a lot of functionality which was only available in F64, not below that. Now everything is available, but making sure that, for example, most of the things where we see that the customers are starting with production workload with this baseline, although it might be costly, but that is what production is for. And then you can do, once you start using your pattern, then you analyze it, then downgrade it further if you think this is not the right size. Or, for example, pause it after a while when it's not in use, because the capacity has a pausing mechanism, but if you are using report at that time, it will not work, of course, because the capacity is paused.
Yes. And even though you will check the pricing, there are a few tricks, meaning that you can go with reserved capacities. But yeah, we are also advising the same F64 to go to production. And you will, if you need more, then scale up for those peaks of hour, for example, to F128, and then immediately scale down just to keep the cost optimal. Yep. And now let's go to the AI part. So we'll start with Power BI. Again, Power BI is the heart of Fabric. Power BI allows, and it's bringing us semantic modeling. It allows us to explore, visualize the data. On Azure, we have to deal with analysis services. Right now, with Microsoft Fabric and Power BI embedded, we do not have to take care of it. It's under the semantic models, under this word. No need to provision, configure, scale. And Power BI inside Microsoft Fabric is coming with a nice improvement for the way how you query your data. So in the past, you could either do the direct query mode. So basically from reports, you were using queries mapped to DAX queries, then analysis services, querying SQL, DW, scanning, and so on. That was slow, but the promise was that it was in real time. There was, of course, the import mode. So basically, you imported the data set up to the memory of the analysis services that you were paying for. It was fast, but the costs were super high. Plus, many times, what you get out of memory. Yep. And that's why we have a direct lake mode, meaning that we have reports inside Fabric, because there is analysis services, there still is, but we do not see that. It's invisible for us. So basically, if the Microsoft Fabric is keeping that data set inside the analysis services, the answer is immediate. But if not, the service itself is going to one lake and it's querying the necessary data for us. So it's a combination of fast, real time, no duplication of data, and just going to the source to get what is needed.
My question is legit. With the direct lake mode, if I did the memory part, I'm getting direct query, I'm getting the real time on my Power BI.
One more time, memory.
Imagine before I store the data in one lake by the mirroring. I mirror my sources.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. So, and now in my reports is a real-time data, the data set. It's a real-time, like the direct query mode.
I'm not sure if I'm getting your question, but I assume that so you mirror your data and the data is in one lake.
Yes.
Then you on top of that, you build some semantic model that is making
reports.
Exactly. And then your reports are going to the
one lake.
Yes. And inside one lake, you have your data mirrored. So it's real time to real time.
Yes.
But you imagine you multiply real time by real time. So there is going to be some latency because of this refreshment process. But the principle is the same, that real time to real time. But of course, there will be some
There are two parts that you need to be aware of. In the direct query mode, consider also like the time and also the cost. Because if you see the warehouse is not directly, because that is a compute, which will cost you extra. So if your data is already on the lake in a process form, then it will give you better. But a lot of I have customers who say that I have IoT data sitting on the lake, billions of rows. I want to bring into a Power BI, and I'll just say, what are you doing in a Power BI? That because it says out of memory or something like that. It's even direct query. I'm doing just a summation of that. So if you're doing summation, do a summation on the actual lake. So you just bring like smaller data, because it's illogical that you're just bringing the things to just summarize it and you just can humanly see one number, right? Or a graph. So don't do like bring all the data and just do the aggregation in the Power BI. Reduce the things like do a group by clause directly on the Parquet format or process it in that way and then do it. Otherwise, there will be always some edge cases that you will come up with this kind of stuff.
But now I am like for the direct query, we know you cannot like have a connection with the multiple sources. There is like some kind of constraint with the other sources. But now with the mirroring solution, I'm getting any on-prime solutions, and I'm getting this near real-time things on my report. So it's kind of like a huge improvement.
Yes, it's not an improvement, but then consider two things. Sorry if
I'm really sorry.
The first thing is on the direct query. Why there are two like multiple scenarios? You don't want to do that because a lot of time the data is already processed. You want to connect to a semantic model, not something like because the business will not understand the 3NF and the Power BI doesn't understand the 3NF form. It's very unoptimized. On the other side, on the data lake side, if you also have like the same concept that you are just doing an operational data source and then you are just exposing everything in there, again, you can do it. But if the modeling is not correct, like you have multiple customer tables in multiple data source, you have to at least combine it.
This is the part of modelization of my semantic models. We are going to build it, but once I will build it, the business value is going to be the same.
Yes,
but free.
Yes. Because from my side, again, the real time from the source, they are not semantic models.
Yes.
They are 3NF. 3NF is very bad on Power BI or any reporting, right?
Yes.
Because it's not Power BI. The business doesn't understand those value even. You have to transform even the column names or make it dimensional. That's why the like the star schema are there to make sure that the business understand what we are looking for.
Just doing a time check, we have like 30 minutes left.
Yes, and we are going to the new capabilities that are about chatting, talking to our data, not only taking a look, because no one said and promised that business intelligence is about looking at the dashboard, is about getting the right answers. And because of it, we want to get the right answers with using the language that we are using, the natural language. So we are getting the capabilities of talking, not only with a Copilot, but with something more intelligent. And by intelligent, I mean having an option to create our agent that is tuned, that is injected, embedded with our context. And also, if we want to apply the solution inside our enterprise, we need to have an option to monitor the accuracy, get the feedback, train the model, and reapply the changes. Let's go ahead and take a look at this specific one demo. So we have just a dashboard, sales dashboard, and then we are going to starting. So we are going to create an agent. Let's start with using and comparing it Copilot. We can ask a single question to our Copilot. The Copilot will take a look at the dashboard under it. Beyond that, there is a semantic model, so Copilot can understand it. At the same time, we want to explore it even further because we see that in our business we have some repetitive analytics that is happening. So let's create a like Q&A. So you may recall there was some time ago a Q&A service that if there is a question to provide a specific answer. So in Copilot, we can natively embed those questions and those answers to make sure that everyone within our organization will get the same answer for the same or the similar questions. But the next step is basically, okay, so how I can kind of build a AI skill and capabilities that are basically not only understanding the semantic model, but are more knowledgeable. So are providing us information where the specific data is located. Take a look. So the question is, what are the composite sales over time? Summarize the insights. So this is not a specific question, what's the number on this dashboard, but this is a question that Copilot here embedded with some capabilities needs to process to, okay, those 3 different reports and semantic models, below it, lake houses and warehouses. Okay, so during that time, Copilot here inside Fabric is building all of those connections, gathering the data, and it can firstly not only answer, but build a chart for us, build a code for us, the code that we can run, evaluate. And the biggest improvement is that we do not have to kind of define who can access to what. It's one lake security. So whatever the privileges, whatever the identity or like privileges based on identity that we are having, it respects columnar level security, low level security, object level security out of the box. There is no need to rerun it, recreate it. And we have an option just to not only get the results, but also process, dig in further, and save such a result as a specific single, think about that as a specific single copilot, or we are calling that agent that you can share with your team. So the typical scenarios are that basically we have some data, so warehouse or lakehouse, more and more popular is just lakehouse. Then on top of that, building a semantic model, reporting, and then going to Copilot, exploring it. You may quickly find that you need something more. By something more, we need to define something what has a tuned behavior. Then you need to create such an experiment where you defined questions and answers and share that, and relearn the Copilot capabilities within the organization.
So Dr. Estera, you're saying here with this Copilot experience, I can just log in as Fatma to here, and all the reports everyone shared with me, like I can't remember which report it is, I can just ask here and then it will find the answer for me, scan all those reports, and then generate a chart for me?
Yes.
And you said I don't need to worry about security because like if she signs in with her, she'll see her reports and whatever security set, she'll just see her data.
Yes, one lake security, meaning that from the beginning, every object is kind of as, explained and described in a way what you can access to, whatever it's lakehouse, warehouse, whatever the item, because at the end it's just item inside Fabric. It doesn't matter, nothing to be implemented. It's kind of the same as on SharePoint. We do not have to, define anything just to make sure that we have access to the right folder structure. It's by default by the organization that is
define it once and then it carries through.
Exactly, it carries through. I was looking for that word.
You binding the output with the questions in the demo itself. So is it actually interacting with the data and getting insights, or be able to generate graphs or insights, or does it need to work on defined criteria, defined question and answers?
So it interacts, and it can interact with data coming from warehouse and lakehouse. So data coming from tabular data. Further on, we will get more and more capabilities to interact with also files. By files, I mean unstructured data. But here we are interacting with dashboards. By dashboards, we mean a semantic model and the data that is below it.
So if there is a table which has, for example, 50 columns, and I want to run any analysis on it, like similar to this retention, and I have not put in this binding of retention with this typical graph. So would it be able to return this response just from the Copilot perspective? Or do I need to have a semantic layer or?
No, you do not. You do not have to. So there is also a second capability that is fundamental inside Fabric. It is named Data Agent, which is exactly built to not only play with dashboards and semantic model, but also to play with raw data. So whatever you will have in your table, you will have an option to talk to that data through Data Agent.
Sorry, on the
With
Power
your
BI,
simplification.
on the Power BI desktop, is it possible to use a Copilot?
Yes.
And what if, I mean, you are not connected to the internet, you are using the Power BI desktop to design your dashboard, I mean, your reports, so you want to use Copilot, is that possible?
Not using it. No. And then also,
So you're saying you're logged into your Power BI desktop and you're in a machine that doesn't have access to the internet?
Yes.
Because what happens when you ask a question, right? It goes to the Azure OpenAI secure instance and then gives you a response. So if you block the internet, it wouldn't be able to reach that, right? So no. But you can use
And I can check until like the local LLMs. If
Yeah.
that is something which like comes with, let's say, the Windows, and that takes it, but we have to check that with the product group. Like, I don't know.
One more question on the agent part. So basically, because the agent would interpret an intent based on the LLM, and it is supposed to return like a dynamic output based on whatever is fed as a prompt. So how do we ensure that the data which it is extracting, it is basically normalized across all people? Like, for example, if I am structuring my question in a certain manner to the agent, and another person is querying the same data, but in a different structure prompt. So how do we ensure that the data it is returning, it's consistent?
so for those, again, if that's not a simple question that you can, structure as a Q&A, then you need to go to and create data agent. And inside this data agent, you will create kind of a logic that stands behind this question. So yes, behind you are getting a GPT model, and you can define more or less what's the kind of a family of potential, not only questions, but the reasoning that is behind them.
I will suggest it this way. I had one customer on the same, like the data agent. They had business terminology. Okay, so they will just say, I will just make it up. Okay, how to destroy, let's say, the floor or something. Okay. Now, if this has business terminologies and your data columns are not defined like this, it will not know what columns are there. They were just exposing the column like ABC, column 1, 2, 3, and they are asking the question. And the Copilot is saying, I don't know what you are saying. So you need to have some mechanism how to translate it. So then what we did was the business terminology, we know where to get it from. So a lot of time you create the semantic model for the same reason, because the facts and dimensions are in the business terminologies. So if you are asking a raw question, you need to make sure that that question, if a human can understand it, the AI will be able to understand it, because it's not looking into a data yet. It is looking into just the metadata, the column names. But if your column names are, let's say, the address has the name and the name has the address as an example, it will not know what is happening. It will just run the query and it will return it accordingly.
At least you need some dictionary.
Yes.
For
So the
mapping.
dictionary.
And inside Copilot, you are just asking a question, and so Copilot may not be enough, but data agent will be, because for a data agent, you may inject some dictionary, some context, some input that will allow GPT to think through.
Is agent running a physical query on the DB to extract
Yes,
that data?
and it returns you a code for this query, so you can revalidate it. And even going further, you can write your queries, meaning that you can define more or less what are the scenarios. And for those scenarios, you may write your queries. And then you may teach agent how to, answer specific questions. At the same time, if you will find some issues, again, as a user, you will find, okay, I ask a question to data agent, the answer doesn't make sense, but I know the right answer. Then you are writing, okay, not the like button, but there is a correction needed. You are providing the feedback, and then the admin of this agent is getting, okay, someone suggested such improvement, and if the person approve it, this data agent is kind of immediately retraining, and the next time you will ask the same question, you will get the fixed answer. And this is the moment that, again, the simplification in terms of administration of such a AI skills, AI capabilities, AI agents is also simplified. Because imagine we in an organization of 100 of people, we are giving a copilot. How to improve this copilot as of now? There is no way. With data agent, you can, because you are getting an option to capture the feedback from the users immediately and then reapply this feedback.
Sorry, one last question. Can it be a multi-turn response as well? For example, if my queries give me top 10 suppliers, and from the first response, it should ask me that do you want it by value or by volume?
Yeah, so it's sorry, go ahead.
So yes, you want the answer to challenge you or get some specific details.
Like a multi-turn.
Yes. So basically, yes, you can define the data agent's behavior in a way that in the past we are defining the chatbots. So if there is a question, take the input, re-challenge. So I may open very quickly an example, but basically from the building blocks, you are building what's the logic behind data agent, and then yes, you can force this behavior.
So always remember, team, like LLM is stateless. Whenever it's answered, it will just look into a data what it currently has in the context. Okay. So there are two ways. Let's say you ask me that how many customers I have. Okay. It can either bring the whole table to the memory with all the tokens, and then the LLM will count it. Okay, inefficient. What the LLM will do is that it knows the table structure. It will just say these are the query. You will see that the query in the how it prepared. It will just say select, decount something. It will push that. It will bring that value. It might be a single value. It might be a smaller table, and then it will generate the answer like what you say. Who are my top 10 customers? Okay, so it will run the top 10 customers, bring that into the things, and then it will sort it out in the LLM for your response. But you will see the query. If the query is incorrect, you can then tweak it accordingly. Yes.
I have a question. Yeah, so in the case of mirroring from, let's say, Databricks, Oracle, or SAP, we're able to see the data and everything, but are we able to, let's say, is Fabric capable of inheriting any permission rules or user groups within the other systems? So, for example, in the case of asking Copilot, if I'm talking or asking Copilot about a data set that I mirrored from SAP, and as a user, will I be able to access data that I'm not supposed to access, or get insights from data that I'm not supposed to access?
So by principle, you should not.
Okay.
But can you repeat, so you are mirroring the data coming from?
Any different, let's say Databricks, and this data has its own permission, different because of different user groups.
So ideally, you need to synchronize a catalog in Databricks that is having the definition about the permissions with a kind of something similar catalog inside Microsoft.
So it doesn't inherit on its own. Let's say the user groups and the permissions. I need to define that manually within Fabric, separately from Databricks.
You need to apply.
I can answer this in a different way. There are two types of mirroring that you can do. One, something which is in Azure, okay, where the permissions are already defined with Intra. Intra ID you have defined on one lake or table, okay. If that's defined when you are creating the mirroring, there is two types of mechanism. One is the authentication, how you are doing it. There are some connectors which provide that you federate the or push down your credentials to the system where you're querying it from. Okay, if the system supports that as far as it's in Azure, probably it will work with this, things like Databricks or SQL Server because everything is controlled in Intra. Okay, but if you are connecting that versus a generic user and you say, I don't want to push down my user, I just want to have like a normal key which is bringing everything, then you have to define that on the layer when it's the mirror, that view, how you want to access that. So it based on connector to connector. On-prem will not be able to do everything with Intra because that is your on-prem system, right? So you bring that with some generic user like a service principal that this is the query that you're using. So that is the credential which will bring the data to the lake. And then you define on the view or the table the credentials or the RBACs that you want to do it. And the other thing, as I mentioned, if something is in Azure, okay, the connector sometimes does support. I have to check specific connectors, but in some connectors, what we say is federate the my user to the actual source. So in Databricks, how you do it? If you define the RBACs on the ADLS Gen 2 from Databricks, you just say I have a connection, but don't use the default connector. Use my own ID to query it. So it is the same concept with Link. Although from different services or different connector, it might be different. So we have to be very specific. My answer is not generic to everything. Okay, it's very specific to connectors.
When did, we announced the support for and also the scenarios that Fabric and Databricks is better together. Again, there are so many different ways of synchronization, not only like data tables, shortcuts, and everything that you need to take a look, because as a principle, yes, that's the principle that you should not. But of course, that depends, there may be caveats.
And the same thing can be applied as well to purview, right? Like when we say that the assets are already tagged with a particular asset, that this is, let's say, as an example, sensitive versus non-sensitive and things like that. And you are extracting that with some assets, the actual label travel with the asset itself. In some cases, it doesn't travel. It's just like a tag. As far as within you are in the ecosystem of Fabric, it will do everything. But if you are doing outside, then you have to look into specific things and confirm.
In this data agent, does it have any limits in terms of the number of tables that could be handled in the data semantic layer?
The number of tables. So there is always
It is documented in our, in our docs. I can't remember. I think it's around.
No, I'll answer it in this way. There is always limit. Nothing is unlimited. Okay, there is always limit. The number thing is we always recommend that you do something which is like a business readable, like a star schema, because then you do the query. If you do it on like third normal form, in data lake, you know, the inferential integrities are not even defined. Okay, you don't know how to connect this column with this column, whether it's like mandatory field or non-mandatory field, whether it's null or not, whether it's one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-many. The relationship, the system will not know. So that's why it's always better to have a semantic model on top of it. And the semantic models are usually the KPIs. You have facts, you have dimensions. That is a limited table, not like made a couple of tens. You don't do like query everything. Although you can do it like the data agents, which Dr. can confirm, but you need to be very specific, right? Because you cannot query everything.
Now, for example, if I do have a relatively big semantic model, right, for dashboarding and so on, and this might have too many tables, to what extent I would rely on the data agent or on integrating such data with good accuracy in terms of writing complex SQL queries to get the data?
Capacity that is behind it, and then testing in the real scenario. And just remember that I love this answer that nothing is like there is always limitation for everything.
But there is no recommendation or best practice.
There is actually. It's recommended to keep it up to like 25 tables max.
A few tens of
There's other things. We have full docs for it.
And a few tens of tables. A lot of times the star schema are like the joins are very simple, right? Because dimension and facts. In facts, you can have hundreds of KPIs, but the dimensions are usually like your tables, your customer, your addresses. You define the hierarchies and the business understand that. Otherwise, they will lose even the business who are querying that if the tables are too many, they will not even know how to structure it.
And so not have more than 32 columns, because if you have more, then specific optimizations are not happening.
And then one other thing, I just read one post on the LinkedIn. The guy was saying that it was amazing how LLM replied to me. So testing is always better. He said, I have an Excel, I put it into this and I just say, what are the KPIs? And it bring back the KPIs to me. And I just say, are you sure this is correct? And the reply was, sorry, your file was encrypted. So I just made it down. So you have to test what you are doing.
The worst AI and AI agent is not this one which is making mistake, but this one which is making mistakes, fabricating data, and then claiming that it's true from the beginning. And again, with Copilot, like data agent is the next step to at least try to get the feedback from the users and retrain, whereas in Copilot, be cautious, won't rely on the data. Those results.
I think I see something. You can also like break things up into steps. So maybe you can have a agent in the middle that figures out the best place to look. And then it can point that one, the final one that talks to the user to the right direction. Or if you can do anything with traditional filter methods, like do that first, don't rely too much on the thing.
I love this answer as that's going and triggering something what was promised to show you and what Microsoft has published. I'm just checking my battery, but we will be on time. So Microsoft healthcare group published a concept that is chain of debate. Like they publish how to make sure that the quality of the data agents is there, how to make they're talking to each other. So here, take a look. Some scenario. This is for energy trading. Again, based on Fabric, this visualization is just for demo purposes. We are going to have different, multiple agents. Each of them is specialized. Not every, and saying that this is agent, it doesn't mean it's LLM. Sometimes it can be, this one is LSTM. This is the deep neural network, which is capable of doing a pretty good classification, regression, and time series forecasting. But basically, you are going to have different multiple agents. Each of them is specialized in a single domain, single task, and is excelling in a single small task.
Yeah.
All of them are going to be, they are going to talk to each other just to find the consensus. And we also, with using AI Foundry and the different frameworks, we can define what's the logic behind them. You know, do they have to be confident more than 50%, or do they have to agree, all of them? So we are defining what the consensus mean, what's the final logic behind the means, but just to make the data agents the most, or the system at the end, the most accurate, we are allowing them to work, to execute the task they were designed for. Each of them is making the recommendation. Each of them is checking each other, because following you, what you said, the risk governor can challenge trader agent, asset manager is challenging profit agent, and so on. But that's the kind of a stepping up and back with software development. That at the end we need to have some way of verification. For us right now, it's one agent either challenging or all of them talking between themselves. But at the end, what we are getting from this discussion, just a final decision, because we can ask, and this system was designed, should I recharge my batteries to prepare for blackouts, or should I recharge, or should I trade the energy? And I can have a single model that is doing that. A single model that is multimodal data, is doing multimodal data processing. But what will be the accuracy? It's super challenging to make something what is processing tabular data, images, time series, and so on. There is no single solution that right now is doing all of that on a pretty good accuracy. So for now, have a few of them, and the same system, the same architecture is designed for hospitals, for oncologists and radiologists. Whether the patient is going to have a tumor or not, hard to say. But if we analyze MRI images, CT images, blood results, and so on, and if we'll take the patterns from the past, then we allowed those agents, to talk to each other and then suggest the final decision. And on those scenarios, remember always about explainability part, meaning that there is a final decision and we can always challenge this decision, meaning that explain, and there are a few techniques how agents, LLMs, and different models can share based on what criteria they made this decision, what's the level of confidence. Also, in terms of the models that are doing image processing, they can share why they suggested that in this specific point there is an object. They can share why, and like they can explain also in the visual way why and why not. And in terms of going further, we can also get from those models based on what data they made this decision, including because they were trained. Sometimes those LLMs will not say it to us, but if that model is a specific created by us, we may challenge and get the answer why specific recommendation was happened. And sometimes the answer can be because that data was provided just in the past during training.
Dr. Estera, actually, we are on time. Do we have like some demos you wanted to show? Or
yes, like the 2%. So I think that
are they like recorded demos that you can find? And
yes, I will provide this link, but this was the theory and visualization. And this is the final, again, the system where we want to train either automatically or with human in the loop. That's another concept, or man in the loop, or just advisory only. So those agents interconnected with each other, talking to each other, sharing the recommendation, are following specific debate whether I should trade or not. They are doing analysis, sharing the proposal, challenging itself, and then finally making the decision, or they are suggesting decision to us. In this case, it's hold. We can say that, and here this demo was built on top of AI Foundry. We use different models because each time a new model will bring higher accuracy, and we should never allow it to be based on just a single model from a single family of the models, because then that model can be just biased against specific scenarios. That's why in this case we were testing different models, different forecasting techniques. Here using machine learning / data science ARIMA model or OpenAI models, or different approach, and then predicting something. But what I want to conclude with is that basically those agents which were talking to each other, they are just so many codes, so many costs also because they are running and talking, but at the end they are just making a final recommendation. Sell, buy, and the same will happen for healthcare. Should we recommend a surgery or not? My PhD was about brain tumor. Like first of all is detection, and detection means classification. Yes, there is a tumor. Then measuring the volume. By measuring the volume, we estimate. So we are doing the regression. Or the volume is that size of the other. And at the end, another classification suggesting. So if there is a tumor, that's the volume. So is it the malignant or benign? And based on that, what we should also, going further and further and further. So we are landing with not a single agent, but right now everything is going like the application. The new name for application is agent, and agent's definition is application.
And the trading things which you were showing, is it stock trading or what?
So yes, it can be applied to stock trading as well. In this case, we were, my laptop is gone, because on specific industries, fundamental is to utilize different energy sources and also being prepared for blackouts. We were trading the energy, but the same logic is for trading the currencies, is trading the stocks.
Let's make all the community millionaires. Let's ask them to invest in stocks then. We can use the agents to take the decision and be millionaires.
But the same architecture can be really applied for healthcare. For I would say that any solution and the simplest option, if you also just review a few conferences, even a global one related to the human-computer interaction, chain of debate is solving every problem. The biggest challenge with chain of debate, so having multiple agents talking to each other, debating and suggesting the most accurate answer, is the cost. But we need to start with some approach to optimize it further on. Thank you so much.
Should we just do regular questions? Or should we?
I don't know, I think that the guys will be tired, but it was
Yeah,
super helpful.
okay,
I think,
let's just ask the question and then the people can take this. Okay, who today? Sorry, yeah. Unless you want to. You have a question? You want to, oh, you're ready.
Because the questions were already in the session, so I think everyone will be tired.
I'm sorry?
Just one question.
Maybe we can take it after that. So
I'm here like in this in Qatar. I'm for the very first time in region. I'm staying till the end of next Tuesday, but every quarter I will visit the cities. Yeah, that's our commitment to this region. Also from educational side, but